Richard, and sorry, and thanks all of you also for having us here at the Future of Digital Workplace webinar series. So I don't know if you saw the quick intro. We're definitely in the people engagement end of the employee experience spectrum, and a Swedish company from the beginning. We opened up in Britain in 2019, and this market is today our main focus, but we'll be opening a North American presence in the very near future. And what we do is we use, as a background, we use AI to run employee surveys in a new way, which is really time efficient and automated. And the platform aims to empower all levels of leadership to improve their team's well-being, but also the staff retention, motivation, and productivity of their teams by helping improve and measuring leadership. And what we'll look at today is some of the data which we covered throughout the pandemic from across all our entire client base. And we'll together look at what this really tells us about how people have found this scenario, but also, although it's been a challenging time, what has been learned, and how is what we are learning today an opportunity for all of us to move forward. And to keep everyone on their toes, we've also included an interactive element that we'll come back to in a very short moment. So COVID has, of course, been a huge challenge for many of us on a personal level, and likewise, many organizations are struggling. However, the pandemic is still reshaping the economy and how we work, but lots of organizations and people have been very successful, which several of us have alluded to today. And finding these new ways to become successful is what we'll zoom in on. And this is also a theme that we've been working on to support our existing client base with other thought leaders and sort of gained input from external parties. And one of those things is a podcast series we've done with Josh Bersin. And this means that lots of the background information and further detail is available as podcasts, ebooks, blog posts, etc., that you can download from our website. You can see the link there, or just go to winningtemp.com. And back to the theme at hand. So lots of us today have talked about home working, and what we see is actually that home working has forced a shift to a more autonomy-friendly mode of leadership, with or without under-table sensors. And as we're also noting, it's supercharged digital transformation that already begun has been accelerated. And it also, we all agree that it seems unlikely that things will go back to what things were like before the pandemic. Another piece of information around home working is Slack. They asked 4,700 knowledge workers as a part of their Future Forum research about home office, and they found that the majority never want to go back to full-time office work. Only 12%, as a matter of fact, wanted full-time office work, and 72% of people that were asked said they wanted a hybrid remote office model. So we believe that we stand before a fantastic opportunity to not only make the most of this situation, but to continue to improve performance by applying what's been learned about leadership and sort of what's been forced to be learned from leadership, and applying this into the future and into the sort of post-pandemic world that we're looking at. But before we judge on, we wanted to ask you, because although this is about, you know, the challenges that will exist post-pandemic, you probably have really interesting input to what they are. So we're going to use another Swedish platform that's called Mentimeter. And if you pick up your phones or whatever device you have, and if you go to menti.com, we'll just ask a quick question from you. This will take about a minute, and you can use anything that's connected to the internet by just typing in that web address and entering the code 91978663, and we'll be able to see the results live as they come in. And what the question is, what post-pandemic people and leadership challenges are you expecting? What do you think might be tricky as people return to the office for those that have been at home, or physical teams start to come together as shops and say the service industry reopens? What's specific to your area? And for those of you who can't see the code, by the way, it is 91978663. That's 91978663. Just thinking, can we move the Zoom bar? There we go. And we'll just keep this open for a moment longer. This is interesting. Evolutive leadership is a new phrase to me. I'll have to follow up afterwards and look at that. And so far, it seems that retention is something that many of us are seeing. And perhaps that's linked to organizational change, lack of vision, lack of dedicated teams, leadership reluctance, HR culture, lack of motivation, engagement. And I imagine that something like retention will also feed into profitability. And what we'll do is we'll leave this open also throughout. So if you want to add in things later, 91978663 is the code at menti.com. And but what we're seeing so far is engagement and retention to be key areas. And this also reflects what we're seeing across the client base. Forced presentialism. I think that will be an issue in some organizations where the culture means that you have to pay some face time to the office. And when it comes to retention and engagement, I think what we've also seen is during the economic slowdown, there's a pent-up demand to change roles, but many people have been reluctant to take the step forward as the economy has been a bit shaky. There's a perceived risk associated with changing jobs. And also perhaps in some areas, the labor market has been a bit slower. And these people are probably just sitting and waiting for the right opportunity to leave. Thank you very much again for sharing that. And let's jump back. And we'll come back to these at the end. So in addition to the great insights that you've shared with each other, and thank you again, what we do at WinningTemp is we also continuously ask all of our clients how they feel about their work situation. And this provides us with a unique opportunity to conduct analysis on the COVID impact, both in terms of what's gone well, but also in terms of what can be improved. And as a background for these data sets that you see here, we have about 700 clients today and count over 140,000 people as regular users of our platform. And this means that we've looked at a pool of over 10 million data points to draw these charts that you see in front of you based on the real-time surveys that we conduct. And more specifically here, the brief we gave to the data scientists was, how has engagement been affected by the pandemic? They then conduct analysis across a range of topics within the wider phrase of engagement, and they identified these 4 subtopics as the ones that have been most volatile or most different to what they usually look like through a year. And what you can see here, that whilst there have been ample challenges and we're yet to experience the full impact in areas such as mental health, it's not always that bad in many cases. I mean, someone said before, was it good before the pandemic? Well, maybe we shouldn't idealize the office environment, because in some cases here, it's actually worse than it is a year later. And these 4 charts, these ingredients of engagement, they each represent a time series. So, and each of these charts also represent a bunch of questions that are grouped into the topics: commitment, leadership, work situation, job satisfaction. And on the left, every chart starts on the 1st of January 2020 and continues until the end of January 2021. Commitment looks at themes such as, if you as an employee feel that your organization's long-term goals, or the leadership vision and goals that someone mentioned in the Mentimeter, are important, and if work brings out the best in you as an employee. Leadership includes themes such as if goals are clear and if check-ins occur frequently. Work situation contains questions about the workload and if there is enough time to finish one's tasks. And actually these 3 charts, they're all really positive, and they're better now than they were in January 2020. So the pandemic has actually had a positive effect. However, job satisfaction here, and this means themes such as, is work fun? Or are your tasks enjoyable? It shows a less rosy picture where, you know, if you read this with some generosity to interpretation, it's the same, but actually it's a bit worse than it was before the pandemic. And because we've got some factors that are trending higher than lower or than others, and maybe it shows us that leadership is not only important, but it's by and large seen to be working quite well. However, in the discussions we had in the podcast with Jos Bersin, he also made the point that being engaged does not necessarily mean that people are enjoying themselves, which you can see here in the work situation job satisfaction data. And especially worrying is the drop here in job satisfaction, because that means that people are looking to change jobs in the near future. And we did the background research on what questions to ask and how to group this. That was what the Boffins called a short-term predictor, that people are going to leave their job. So if someone starts reporting that job satisfaction is sinking, it means that they're going to leave very, very soon. So if we look at this from a leadership perspective, what is good management, and how can we combat this? And well, here's our take, or my take. First of all, this has been a time of intense change, and that change will continue as we go back. So when pressures are affecting people from the outside and you have to adapt to deal with a situation, collaboration is more important than ever. And also here, Jos Bersin in the podcast makes the point that organizations where people compete more than collaborate, they can attain really, really high growth rates. However, it also makes it more difficult to adapt if you give someone a playbook and say, execute on this as quickly as you can. So to find new ways of working in a changing environment, collaboration and a culture that promotes collaboration is really key to success. So that's step one. And for the next theme, we're quoting another HR platform called Miterfinch, who looked at Google search data during the period of March to June 2020. And they found that back to work anxiety as a search term had increased by 567%. And the fear of returning to work as a phrase had increased by 200%. So therefore, it's our perception that the next theme should be listening with compassion and humility. And tying it back to the podcast series, there's another comment that rings true to me. And that's that most people want to do well at work. And if there's something hindering this, it's important to understand why that is, and then to help the person to perform better. And because we also know that at the same time as people are feeling really engaged with their work from the previous charts, it doesn't mean they're feeling well. And there are pressures, external pressures at home or wherever, that are affecting people's ability to do their work when they can't do it well. And additionally, gone is also the time when people would be in the office and at home, and these were sort of separate spheres of reality. So if there is an issue that's affecting someone, you can't say, well, you know, leave that stuff at the door. We're now in the office and we're here to work. Because the place you're in, or we are here, or the office is not necessarily a professional environment. So there's no natural insulation protecting you. So instead, it's the leader's job to really listen and to understand what the issues are from the person that they are leading, and then to help solve those issues to sort of unblock the route forward. The next theme is inspiration. So we don't anymore have, you know, coercive measures, and there's less direct control today because people aren't sitting together to the same extent. And constant oversight and micromanagers are, at least in my opinion, luckily, not really a viable option for those who aren't working in the same place. And, you know, as a long-term motivator, they're rubbish anyway. So one of the greatest carrots or tools of motivation is to reconnect to the vision and the purpose of what you do as an organization and you do as a team. We need to remind ourselves why we exist and our impact, because this can have a fantastic motivational effect. And also, this is something that was echoed, if I remember correctly, from one of the comments in the Mentimeter, and ties into things like engagement, motivation, and staff engagement. The final of the four themes is, and by the way, this list isn't exhaustive, it's clarity. Clear goal setting, responsibilities, and resources have never been more important than now. And perhaps this is one of the line managers' more impactful contributions to the organization: to set clear goals and resources, etc., to empower people with the ability to exercise effective self-leadership. So to start rounding things up, how's this an opportunity? Well, first of all, the right type of leadership can drive and how businesses adapt and reinvent themselves. Those who lead and engage are the key agent, ensuring that your organization not only deals with the current environment, but employs what's been learned to avoid returning to what was before and to improve. And looking at the data, we can note that although the current environment is lending itself to a high level of engagement in some ways, this doesn't mean they're necessarily enjoying themselves, your employees are necessarily enjoying themselves or feeling well. For many, work's actually become a refuge, a place to go to avoid all the other shit going on. And if we don't act, this means that we risk losing talent, or we also risk losing the potential people have of doing a good job. And that's why we need empathetic leadership. And because of different aspects of leadership and engagement, it's important to break it down into its subcomponents to encourage the right type of leadership, not just now as a one-off on a continuous basis, come back to XO Day or Zozo Day. These things need to be measured ongoingly, because nothing will go back to what it was like pre-pandemic. And amongst our clients, we're actually in many cases seeing fantastic achievements when they're consistently measuring what's going well and what needs improving within their teams, and then using the data to empower managers to show the right behaviors and to be the best possible leaders they can be. And our view at Winning Temp is, and perhaps if you know us, quite unsurprisingly, that we believe one way of supporting your leaders is with real-time temp measurements, clearly breaking down engagement, showing how your team is experiencing all aspects of work, including your leadership, how connected they are to the vision, is your manager empathetic, and all the other factors that we spoke about earlier. So a really big thank you very much. If you want to continue this chat or have any questions, please fire them off here. Feel free to connect to me on LinkedIn, and there are lots of downloads related to the themes we've touched on briefly here today. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tim. Appreciate your time there, and obviously we'll hear a bit more from you in the panel discussion in a bit. But I'll invite people to drop you any particular questions whilst we sort of just try and keep as close to our original time as we were, if that's okay. Brilliant. Thanks, Tim. Okay, I'm going to shift us on now to keynote number 5 for today, which is all about workplace technologies for the hybrid way of working. And now this is going to be with Jen Bosmans, who's the Global Key Account Director at Spacewell. He's been active there since 2013, providing technology solutions to multinational corporations such as ISS Facility Services, MVGM, and Cushman & Wakefield. Jen graduated as a commercial engineer, subsequently studied law, and followed a course in digital transformation at the Vlerick Business School. Today, his main focus is on managing an international client portfolio of strategic customers, onboarding new customers, and obtaining well-building accreditation. Jen, thank you for being with us. I'll hand everything over to you.
All right, thank you very much for this introduction. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay. All right, can you confirm that you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much. So you're a little bit behind, not running forward on schedule. But so today I want to talk about workplace technologies for the hybrid way of working. As I'm already introduced, I'm Jen Bosmans. I'm the director for the global accounts and also the rest of the world within Spacewell. So actually meaning that I'm responsible for our global key accounts, for example, in ISS, Cushman & Wakefield, but I'm also responsible for our partners and also for our indirect sales rest of the world. If you have any questions during the webinar, just put them in the comment section and or connect with me on LinkedIn or send me an email, and we're definitely available for answering all your questions. Actually, so when we look at the COVID environments and actually how we evolved to the hybrid way of working, we will look to a study with one of our partners, Cushman & Wakefield. They have done a study with 60,000 people, and we identified actually a few pros and cons on the evolution of the workplace. And we saw on that a lot of people were 70% of the global people on a global level say, look, we can have an increased focus and collaboration, and that's very good. We feel trusted with our organization. But there's also more negative items to that, struggling to connect to your company culture, especially when we talk about and talk with the younger generations. Here we need to take definitely the HR aspect into place. And I have even personally myself, I have colleagues that started in April, May 2020, and I've never seen these people, not at least not in real life. Of course, when we look at other numbers, we see that approximately 78% really says, look, purely going for and working from home space is not what we want. We really want to go to an expanded way of working, also including third places like cafes, but also working from an office, from a hub. This, of course, translates the transition or the evolution towards a hybrid workplace. How would that look like? It would look like a little bit like this. It would look like a combination of working from home, working from suburban, urban, local community hubs, campus offices in the city, out of the city, but especially also on-demand event spaces, even interior, exterior spaces. And then we would talk with the third places. We would definitely talk also by restaurants, bar, cafes, co-working spaces. And so it's really how to facilitate your employees, the people within that are coming to your office, your virtual office maybe. How can you, what locations do you foresee for them going forwards? One of the things that I actually saw, and this really indicates how things will get upside down. I saw one of my colleagues from Cushman, they posted, I think 2 weeks ago, this picture. So being in the office instead of being out of the office. This is mainly because today, when we talk about I'm out of the office, that means that you're away from your emails and you're away from your computer. And actually, we see a trend that people will come to the office because they want to collaborate with employees, collaborate with their colleagues. So actually, when they are in the office, they will be away from their email. They will be away from their laptop. So actually, you see that transition can really put something completely upside down. And I think that's actually a good one to think about. If you make the transition, we see it's a real estate transition, because the way we're working today is not sustainable. It's not sustainable working purely from working from home. We definitely see a lot of inputs from departments that need to be creative, that they don't have that creative mindset because they want to work with their colleagues and really need to sit closely together. And of course, also in general, and the office space, the culture, the innovative mindset that's in place. And as we evolve from a pre-COVID to a post-COVID, we actually evolve over from real estate to a total workplace ecosystem. Going from efficiency in the building, effectiveness of the people, engagement, sustainability, and wellness, we really need to go to efficiency of the complete ecosystem and the complete remote community, effectiveness not only in person from the people, but also virtually, engagement and experience, environmental impacts on the ecosystem itself, on the commuting between different locations within the total workplace ecosystem. So not only looking at the sustainability of the building itself. And then, of course, from only looking to wellness, we also need to look to well-being of the people. How do they feel? And also, of course, to the safety. When people want to go to a remote location or a physical location, they want to feel safe. You don't want to have contamination of any type of diseases. So that's really a transition that you see from pre-COVID to post-COVID, from single real estate to total workplace ecosystem. Of course, if you make that transition, technology can help with that transition. And some of these technologies are actually within the tenant's control, but some are also within the landlord's responsibility. For example, applications like ours can be can be within the tenant control, safe distance planning, occupancy planning, indoor air quality monitoring that can be completely in the control of a tenant. Of course, an example here, air circulation and having up-to-date HVAC systems. That's really something that can be in the responsibility of the landlord. So it's a shared responsibility, and I think that's important that both roles, tenant and landlord, are involved within that transition. How can we work and how can we support that transition as a Spacewell? As Spacewell, we really want to increase the performance of the locations, the people and the services. So really on these 3 pillars. We have done that together with Cushman & Wakefield because we there have activated or collaborated on their 6 feet office concept in the Amsterdam HQ of Cushman & Wakefield. What is the 6 feet office concept? It's of course an office fit out, circulation plan. They even have carpets that have 6 feet diameters, safety measures, disposable desk beds, but also our Spacewell technology. Our Spacewell technology going from occupancy, social distance tracking, indoor air quality, comfort monitoring, but also having digital signage for guiding your employees within the office. How would we start such a project, and how would we start such a transition? The first thing is, of course, to really create a digital twin of your building. Here you see that we, from a kitchen layout, a catering layout, we translate that into a 3D floor plan or 3D-like floor plan. This is, of course, not a BIM model. We also do support BIM models, but this is not what you see here on the right side of the screen. So firstly, what are the locations and how can we create a digital format, a digital twin of these locations? A second thing that we do is if we activate the sensors, occupancy sensor, head count sensors, traffic sensors, door counters, we really can monitor live, real time, and 100% anonymous what is happening in your building. And then you see here on the floor plan, okay, at this table, we are currently having 7 people. At the bar, we currently have 2 people. Here, only 1 person is sitting at one of these tables. So real-time data can be shown. Not only the real-time data, but of course, if you have real-time data, you can also add additional layers of information on that. For example, a crowdedness factor. You can say if in a certain room you go beyond a certain threshold, that means that it's overcrowded. So here on this floor plan, you will see, okay, green means that the area is empty, yellow, it is occupied, but not yet crowded, and also red is then overcrowded. So in that way, you can really start measuring, okay, what is happening real time in my office or in my buildings, in my locations. And also maybe a side note, of course, a system like ours can also send a notification to a certain person. Hey, in that room, you currently have overcrowded. It's currently an overcrowdedness going on. This is, of course, based on real-time data. We not only have real-time data available, we also can track and store everything to show it in a historical way based on dashboards. And one of the dashboards that we have activated in the Amsterdam office is our compliancy dashboard. And this dashboard really measures how compliant you are with COVID measures that you have put in place. We saw in general in this dashboard that the overall occupancy increased a lot by introducing this 6 feet office concept. That's of course mainly because there's a fit out done and a refurbishment done, of course. And we also see that the social distancing is actually intact in almost 87% of the cases. So that actually means that the people in the Amsterdam office are quite compliant with the regulations that management has proposed. Although we also see here that the most deviations and exceedance of these compliancy measures are at workstations. And people are very much coming to a colleague, asking something, and you're standing at one desk. And of course, you need to stand at least 6 feet from each other as a compliance perspective. So we see that on the workplaces, most deviations and exceedances of these compliance rules happen. And as a second thing within the locations, as I already mentioned this, of course, monitoring indoor air quality. Here we see that one in three people really say that indoor air quality is impacting their health. If you look to younger people, millennials, and they even prioritize the office environment over salary and benefits. And this is something where we as well can help. And what is the right temperature, right humidity, pressure, carbon dioxide? You can track that on your mobile app or at like a kiosk real time, or we can also show that in a historical dashboard or has dashboards with historical data. One of the primary aspects when you go to a hybrid location is, of course, that you want to manage your workplace ecosystem remotely. And you want to have one tool, one software, one location where you just can log in and see everything. See from all the buildings, your real-time data, your real-time indoor air quality monitoring, even your real-time maybe reservations, tickets. So you really can act at the moment if something is happening, and also even replay certain moments that has happened in the past. So this is really key, I think, when you transition from one single office location to a hybrid workplace ecosystem. So this was a bit about increasing the performance of your locations. As a second is, of course, increasing the performance of the people within these locations. And here we can support on a macro level and a macro level and a micro level. On a macro level, we do have, for example, tools that can manage the complete occupancy of your complete portfolio. For example, in this office, we only have 50 people, and that location in this hub, we only allow 30 people. And of course, you can play with these capacities on a macro level over multiple buildings, multiple offices, and multiple locations. But you can also, we can also support you on that on a micro level. Yeah, for example, meeting room displays and even Exchange, Google Calendar integration, a kiosk that is on location, a big screen where people, when they enter that location, they can see what desk is available, what room is available, what is a crowded floor, what is not a crowded floor, is it parking available, etc. So also on a micro level, on a building location, on a building specific location, there are software touch points that can help you transitioning towards that hybrid location. And as a third one, we also want to increase the performance of the services delivered on that location. And this is, of course, because we can take our IWMS system combined with sensor data, combined with cleaning schedules or static service schedules. And based on that, of course, you really can go to activity-based servicing, activity-based cleaning. For example, if you have occupancy sensors at your desk in the meeting rooms, we easily can track, okay, these meeting rooms have been used during that certain day, so we can send that data to the cleaners, to the handymans, so they can perform their tasks. So it's not a one-size-fits-all based on the sensor data, based on the IWMS tool. You can really have activity-based cleaning, and especially if you have multiple locations, you don't want to clean multiple locations or service multiple locations. You want to service the same amount of people at the right time with the right quality of service. And I think that's definitely very important. This is an example of how that would look like. For example, on the left side, you would see a floor plan. You see highlighted, okay, in these rooms, these locations, tasks need to be performed. If you would click on that desk, click on that room, you go to the right side, and then you really see on a detailed level, these are the tasks that you need to perform. For example, here it was coffee spilled, maintenance, floor cleaning. So multiple tasks can be assigned to a room based on sensor data or based on people just logging tickets. So really coming from real-time data or planned scheduled data. This is how it would look like to increase the performance of the services. As a conclusion of this session, I think when we do the transition, make the transition to a hybrid way of working, you definitely need to take into account that the COVID measures that are currently taking and the impact of COVID on our world has positive effects, but also some negative effects. But let's keep looking at the positive sides of things. We also see when we look at 60,000 people interviewing data points that 78% of the people really want to evolve to that hybrid way of working, because the way we work today is just not sustainable. Workplace technology, as Spacewell provides, could help your organization helping with that transition to a hybrid way of working. And as a last one, I think it's very important that you remember that a physical location, that you also need to look at it not from a pure location perspective, but that you also need to look at, okay, what about the well-being, the health of your employees, the well-being of your customers when they come to that office. So it's more than just looking at your building, it's looking at your complete hybrid solution, and hybrid solution on a location perspective, a people perspective, and also on a service perspective. So this is a bit what I wanted to talk to you today. I hope it gives you a bit of a perspective on how Spacewell sees that evolution into the hybrid workplace. I don't know if you have any questions. Don't hesitate to ask these questions.